Greetings, hello, and welcome to the final video in our Cruising Alaska series. This one is going to be all about what cruise ports we went to and what excursions we excurged upon. I just made a new word there. That's fun. We went on a 7-day cruise. We left from Seattle. I don't know that I talked about what we paid for the cruise. I know that I mentioned the flight, but I just thought I'd throw all of the financial information in here so that you are more aware. But in this video, again, we're going to talk about those ports and those excursions we went on. We'll talk about pricing, whether or not we thought that it was worth it, and the stuff that you should skip, and then like maybe any hidden gems of stuff that we were kind of very surprised about. So round trip flight was $275. We flew from Kansas City to Seattle via Alaska Airlines. Fantastic deal, fantastic trip. Only just a little bit of a delay coming back from Seattle, so that was a really good flight. I really enjoyed that. I purchased my room for $1,892. It was an inside room. It was on deck number 7. This is important whenever you're selecting your room. One thing that I wish I would have done, I wish I would have chose a room that was closer to my parents' room. I don't know why, but for some reason I was in the back of the ship. They were in the front. I just made an error, I guess, whenever I booked it. My bad on that one, but it would have been nice to not have to walk probably a good 7-minute walk from my room to their room just every single time that I wanted to go and meet them to go to dinner. You live and you learn. So mine was an inside room. $1,892 is what I paid. I was the only person in there. So that's important because my parents paid $3,242 for a balcony room, same floor, but they had a balcony that they could go out on and they could look at Alaska scenery. I think that's very important. If you're going to take an Alaska cruise, go for the balcony. It is worth it because there are just so many beautiful, wonderful things to see. And even on port days, whenever you wind up in the, when you wind up in Skagway, when you wind up in Juneau, when you wind up in Ketchikan, there's lots of stuff to see and you can't always get off the ship immediately. And it's really nice to just wake up and sit on your little private balcony and watch the scenery. I think that that's worth the extra money. But in reality, if you're a solo traveler, you get hurt a little bit. Carnival does not like solo travelers because they want to fill up the ship. More people that are on board, more people that are going to spend money in the casino, on drinks, on all of the stuff. So it was actually cheaper for my parents. They only paid $1,621 per person for a much nicer room. Now, granted, they had to share that space, but, you know, they love each other. They're fine with it. And then also on Carnival cruise ships, I'm not sure how other cruise ships do this, but Carnival automatically charges you, I think it's 15% by default. At the end of your cruise, you'll get a bill and then you'll see, oh, wow, I paid like a bunch of gratuities. And that's based upon whatever your room charge was. So 18% of that or so. I can't remember the exact percentage. It's like 15 to 20%, somewhere in there. You can go higher, you can go lower if you want, but by default, they're going to charge you a gratuity percentage, and that's going to be charged to you. And then in addition to that gratuity, I also had some extraneous things. I bought some beverages. I bought some other things on the ship, souvenirs maybe. Can't remember exactly, but I spent $250 extra on the ship. All right, let's talk about the ports we visited. Our first Alaskan port was Juneau. Juneau is a lovely city. It's one of the bigger cities in Alaska. It's easy to get around in. There's tons of public transportation. Whenever you get to the cruise port, cruise terminal, and you get off the ship, there's just bus after bus after bus taking you to the downtown area. That Juneau gets credit for that one. They've got it going on. Some other places that we'll talk about here in a little bit, not as good. So what did we do while we were in Juneau? We went whale watching whenever we were in Juneau. And we also went to Tracy's Crab Shack when we were in Juneau as well. We wound up booking this excursion. It's just this exact excursion. And I would highly recommend this for a whale watching tour in Juneau. It's called the 3.5-hour crowd skipping whale tour in Juneau, Alaska. I'm not sure. Maybe the crowd skipping part is that it's limited to 20 people in total on this boat. So it's a really small group of people. I really liked the vessel that we were on, the Corvus. This was apparently custom made by an engineer, and he wanted a whale watching boat that allowed you 360 views. So like you can get outside of the boat and you can walk around the entirety of it. So that's important whenever you're whale watching, because they're going to drive you up to 100 yards within these whales where they're breaching, and you might need to circle around the boat. So I thought the design of the ship was really cool. And then they've got you inside here where it's nice and cozy and warm if it is a cold, rainy Alaska day, where you can get out of the elements, and they drive you around. It did take 3.5 hours. It was really, really good. It was $189 per person. I feel like that was well worth the price of admission. They gave very interesting information as we drove around the ocean here. It was just really cool. I highly recommend it. Our tour guides were fantastic. They were really great. We saw some really great whales, and highly recommend it. It was great. Tracy's Crab Shack was like it's on everybody's list. Like if you look for things to do in Juneau, so many people say, you got to go to Tracy's Crab Shack. So here's an image of what it looks like. It's looking at the cruise ship. Like when you get off the cruise ship, it's like right there. So they've got prime real estate. They've got it set up in a very nice location. And whenever we were doing all of our Google searching and whatnot, they kept coming up time and time again that you got to go here. It's really delicious. Let's take a look at their menu. All right, so here is their menu, and this is kind of why we came here, is this little part of it in particular. We thought that seemed like a pretty good value. So you can get the red king crab, which apparently is like the meatiest, juiciest, most wonderful crab, or you can go, they didn't have golden king crab, so I don't even know what that is. They did have snow crab, and they did have Dungeness crab. I opted for the middle of the road option, the snow crab, because it looked just as good as the red king crab, but it was about half the price. It comes with these mini crab cakes. Those were delicious. Loved that. The bisque was also delicious. And then 14 ounces of crab. If you like to eat crab, I'm sure that this is a fine place to go and have yourself some crab. I've had crab many times before. I love crab, and I was not overly impressed with this, but for $58 for all that food, seemed pretty reasonable to me. My parents, well, actually my mom opted for the red king crab, and my dad kind of cheaped out like me and went for the snow crab. She didn't really think that the red king crab was worth the upcharge for that. Dad thought that, I think this is the first time he'd ever eaten crab. He felt like it was too much work for the amount of food that you got with crab. He did really like the crab cakes, though. So they've also got, like you can order pounds of this stuff. Like it's very, very expensive. But as far as a nice place to sit down and have a meal after a cool whale watching excursion, Tracy's Crab Shack delivered. I would recommend going with the $58 crab, or maybe even the $48 crab instead of the $98 crab feast. That's just me. Well, it's been over a month since I got back from this trip, so I do have my days a little bit mixed up. We also went on the Gold Belt tram whenever we were in Juneau. So when you get off of the cruise ship, this is kind of what you're looking at. This is the port right here. It's kind of in a valley. It's very beautiful, and you can take this very cool tramway up to the top of this mountain and get just these spectacular views. This is what you're seeing whenever you get to the top of this tramway. Tickets are very reasonable, I felt like. They were only about $50 per person. Yeah, I think we paid like right at $50 per person to go up on the tram. There are lots of hiking trails up there once you get up there if you want to partake of those and get even more scenic, lovely, beautiful Alaskan wilderness views. We saw bald eagles. That's probably the only wildlife we saw on this entire cruise were the bald eagles. And we saw several of them on this hike up the Gold Belt tram. So we had a couple of hours before our whale watching excursion, so this seemed like a perfect thing because again, the public transportation was great. It took us from the cruise terminal, the little probably 1 mile voyage that it took to get to downtown Juneau. And then right when we got off of our bus, the tram was just right there. So if you've got a couple of hours and you want to see some scenic views and not have to spend tons of money, maybe go on a short little hike, I would recommend the Gold Belt tram at $50 a person. I think that's a good value. So I had my ports mixed up there, so we're going to dive into day 2 of our Alaskan cruise, which was Skagway. Skagway is a very cool place. It is full of rich history. It was one of the places where a lot of the gold miners during the gold rush were hearing that people were finding gold. And so the town was just flooded with people trying to go to Alaska and make it rich. Most people did not, however, and one of the things that came out of that was the creation of the White Pass Railway. And this White Pass Railway was constructed over the course of 2 years straight. And so it went through the dead of winter, the nice spring and summer and fall, 2 years. And so people went up to Skagway in order to find their fortune. And they found that they were kind of stuck once they got there because they spent all of their money to get there. And they wound up becoming very cheap labor to build this railroad because they had no way of leaving this wintry wonderland. So I found the story behind Skagway very fascinating. The town of Skagway, on the other hand, this is what it looks like. So these are just like some various images from Skagway. It's very touristy, and I this was probably my least favorite town, I would say, because it was just tourist trap after tourist trap after tourist trap. What you're going to see is a reoccurring theme of jewelry stores in Alaska, and the reason for this is because Skagway, Juneau, and Ketchikan are major cruise ports, and so they have thousands and thousands of people that are coming through there, and they've heard the story about the gold rush, and that puts in their mind, oh, jewelry, like it's a great place to buy jewelry. And so there is literally a jewelry store every other store in Skagway. And if that's your thing, cool, like go there. You're going to be amazed at the amount of different jewelry options that are there. This image might do a pretty good job of... Yeah, so here is just a real quick rundown of all of the different businesses that are available. You're going to see jeweler after jeweler, t-shirt stores, Klondike Brewing. I think we went to Skagway Brewing Company. If you like beer, they make a delicious beer. I would recommend that place. Didn't eat at the restaurant, tours, and a couple of breweries and a bunch of jewelry stores. That's kind of what you get in Skagway, and also in Ketchikan as well. It's very similar there as well. Just kind of touristy areas. They have a lot of transient population where people come in and they work during the tourist season and then they go. I think they said that Skagway only has 800 permanent residents. And everybody else is just kind of seasonal help, which would have been interesting if I was a college kid and I didn't have maybe a job lined out or like family or anything like that. It might be cool to spend a summer here and see beautiful Skagway. But we went on the excursion, the White Pass Summit Rail. This is the exact one that we booked. We went to cruiseline.com. We searched for White Pass Summit Rail and Bus Excursion. It was $275 per person, which is expensive, but also the views that you get on this tour are just unbelievable. Some of the best, absolute best views that we witnessed in Alaska were all on this train. This is what the interior of the train car looks like. The seats are nice and comfortable. They don't overload the cabins. All of us had a bench seat to ourselves, so I appreciated that. You're going to wind up in the summit, and you actually do wind up in Canada, which is kind of a weird thing. Whenever you get to Canada, before you're allowed to get off of the White Pass Railway, some of the representatives from the Canadian government come aboard, and they ask to see your passport. You have to show them your passport. I don't know what happens if you don't have your passport. I don't know if they probably detain you, because we got quite a few messages from Carnival that said, hey, you're going to have to bring your passport. So, and we thought that was kind of weird. But yeah, you wind up just barely in Canada, like on the summit. And but the views are spectacular. $275 for this excursion. So what we got with our excursion versus just going to the White Pass Railway website, like you can do that, but the White Pass Railway ticket, like just a round trip ticket, is $150. So we paid a little more than that, right? $275. What do you get for your money? You get somebody that will pick you up in downtown Skagway on a bus. So you get dedicated transportation. That's nice. You don't have to arrange transportation to get to the railway. He takes you there. He kind of talks about the town. That's where our tour guide was fantastic. He was fantastic. I don't remember his name off the top of my head, but he was a guy that had lived there for several years now, knew a lot about the town, was passionate about the town, and didn't really hold anything back as well as far as, talking about how many permanent residents there were, like any questions we had, he answered them. And I like that. Like, I like getting information about the place that I'm at from the people who live there and know about it. I was disappointed with the person who was narrating the train tour, because they would only come on and say something like every 10 minutes or so. And so there would just be long lulls of silence. Like, granted, you're looking at things like this, and it's beautiful, and it's wonderful to look at. You're seeing glaciers from far off. That's really, really cool. But I personally would have appreciated somebody narrating just a little bit more and telling me more history and facts and things like that, because I pick up on that stuff, and I remember that stuff, and I find it fascinating. But our bus tour guy, he was great. So he dropped us off at the train, and then he drove into Canada to the summit in the bus, and so we were able to get off of the train in Canada, get on the bus, and then he took us back down through a scenic route that we would not have seen, at least not as close up, from the train. And we got to stop, and we got to take some really nice pictures. I'll throw those up on the screen now. I think probably some of the best scenery that we saw was on the bus ride back, whenever he stopped the bus and he's like, "This is my favorite place. Get out, take a picture. You're going to love it." We got to stop really close to waterfalls, just all kinds of stuff like that. So I don't know what would be better. Like, it was cheaper to just buy the round trip White Pass Rail ticket, $150, but you go up the rail and you come down basically the exact same route, so you're looking at the exact same stuff. I really liked our tour guide. He provided really good information, and we got to see some stuff that we wouldn't see if we would have rode the train back down. So if I had to do it all over again, I think I would go White Pass Summit Rail and bus excursion all in one. Pay a little bit more and get a little bit more out of it. All right, our final day in Alaska was Ketchikan, which is apparently the capital for like catching salmon or something like that. I'll put a little factoid up there for you so you can read about the coolness of Ketchikan. I had service this day, so it was nice to be able to use my phone and actually look at some history about the place that I was in. That is maybe one thing that I would consider in the future. I don't know. I'm split on it, like Wi-Fi. You have to pay, I think it's $20 a day for Wi-Fi if you get it every single day. Or you can pay $30 for just like if you want to get it like one day, which is what I did. In the middle of the cruise, I paid for it one day. That way I could FaceTime my son and talk to him and other people that were not on the cruise back home. So, but the internet package, I'm split on it, right? Because it's really nice to disconnect and not have work emails like tempting me, or just text messages and Facebook and just all the stuff that you get with being connected to the internet. It was really nice to be truly disconnected from all of that for 10 days. But I would have liked to have been able to research a little bit more about the places that I was in, just get some background and some cultural information, which is what I did about Ketchikan. And in Ketchikan, we only did one excursion. It was the Great American Lumberjack Show, but then we also went to a nice little hidden gem, the Ketchikan store. So the Great Alaskan Lumberjack Show, that makes sense because what they did is they had two teams of two competitors, and one side was representing Team Canada and one side was representing Team America, and they split the crowd down the middle, and you were supposed to cheer for the American side or cheer for the Canadian side depending upon where you were sitting. And they ran them through several different events. It was cool. It was not that expensive. So like right now you could get a ticket for $43. I think we booked it through the cruise ship, and I think it was a little bit more expensive than that. So be aware of that. If you get your tickets directly through Great Alaskan Lumberjack Show, it might be a little bit cheaper than actually booking it through the cruise ship itself. They also had some other options as well. The Great Alaskan Lumberjack Crab Feast. The problem for us is that we were only in Ketchikan for 4 hours. So we really did not have time to watch the show and sit down and eat an all-you-can-eat crab meal. So it's all-you-can-eat Dungeness crab, for $100. That seems pretty good if you have like 2 hours to sit down and just crack through tons of crab. Because you got to eat a lot of crab to justify your $100. So that could be worth it. That's something to consider. I would recommend the Lumberjack show. It was really cool. I used to watch the Pro Lumberjack competition that was on ESPN. So to be able to see this live and in person was just really cool. So I would recommend it, especially if you're only in Ketchikan for a tiny amount of time. This is a good one to kind of fit in that window. And then if you're not familiar with Ketchikan, let's do a Google search of that and just kind of give you some images. All right, this is what Ketchikan looks like. It's a little bit bigger than Skagway, but very similar in nature to, tailored to cruise patrons, touristy, lots of jewelry stores. But granted, there's also some very beautiful scenery. I saw a post from my Carnival Facebook group that I joined. Somebody had a whale that came up in the bay in Ketchikan, and it was flopping and putting its head out and doing all kinds of stuff. They got some incredible pictures. So you never know what you're going to see. But man, the scenery there is really, really beautiful. It's very impressive. So again, just 4 hours in Ketchikan, walking around the downtown area. It's easy to get around in. There's more cars down here than I would like. Like we had to stop at intersections and things like that. So if you have mobility issues, definitely try and get a wheelchair secured for the day. If you've got any kind of mobility issues at all, Carnival can hook you up with that, or your whatever cruise line you're going in. Because there's quite a bit of walking, and there's not really a good way to get around here other than walking. Like you can get in a car, but it's going to take just as long, and it's going to be expensive to kind of go around down there. I happened in a little hidden gem. It's the Ketchikan's chocolate store, and they don't have a picture of what I purchased. That candy is long gone. It was so delicious. Chocolate-covered toffee with sea salt on top of it. Oh my gosh. Ever since I've had that at this candy store, I have craved chocolate-covered toffee with salt on top of it. I was able to find some locally in Joplin not too long ago, and that was delicious. But this Ketchikan's, you know, if you got a little bit of a sweet tooth like me, and you got some time to kill, and you want to get a tasty treat, check this place out. They've got all kinds of stuff. You can get this stuff shipped as well. I'm contemplating getting their specialty assortment shipped to me, because candy, that kind of looks like it right there, but I think that's a caramel. Chocolate covered salted toffee. Yeah, life is good. All right, other recommendations for low mobility. Just if you have low mobility and you're worried about getting around in Alaska at any time, just talk to Carnival, go to their front desk whenever you get on the cruise line, and just see what they can do for you. I think I mentioned it before, but whenever we debarked the cruise ship, we requested wheelchair service for my mom, and that was fantastic. She was so tired, and her legs were bothering her. She's had a knee replacement surgery whenever we got on the ship, because she walked, and there's ramps, and there's stairs, and there's just a lot of pressure and time on those limbs. So if you do have somebody in your party who needs some help with mobility, talk to Carnival. They will hook you up. They had somebody come to our room with a wheelchair, and they wheeled her right out, and it was fantastic. It made for a long day of travel that we had much, much simpler. Ultimately, though, would I go on an Alaskan cruise again? Absolutely. I would definitely go. I would splurge for the balcony room. I probably wouldn't go on the White Pass rail again, because I've done that. I've seen it. I definitely would go whale watching again. That was awesome. I definitely would go get Ketchikan's again. I've done the Lumberjack show, so I wouldn't need to see that. I just love looking at scenery in Alaska. That to me was the huge draw of it. One excursion that we didn't do that I wish we would have done was taking the small boat to the glacier. So we saw the glacier from afar on our cruise ship, but they offered a $275 option to get on a small boat and get within 500 yards of the glacier. And that's a lot of money to get on a little boat with a bunch of people, but how many times are you in Alaska right next to a glacier? Maybe once in a lifetime. So we should have probably went for that one, but we didn't. Oh well. That just means there's another opportunity to go back in the future. Thank you so much for watching this video series. I hope it's been helpful. It's definitely a little bit different flavor than what I've provided so far on TechWise. But I had a great time on the trip, and I wanted to share all of that information that I learned with you all. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to me. Put my email on the screen. You can reach out to me directly, and I'll be happy to answer any and all questions that you have. Thank you so much for watching, and as always, I hope now you are more tech-wise and Alaska-wise.